Hello anime lovers, this is your captain. In this anime we will follow a little king who conquered the world across all lands beyond the seas. His name is a symbol of terror to all his enemies. If you like it, subscribe and leave the thumbs up for more videos. He started as a ruler of his own kingdom, but with only 3 years he managed to conquer a whole world. Now he is considered as the ruler of the world. On the other hand, his people think that he is a cold and heartless tyrant, a powerful monster who is ready to cut your head off if you are contradicted. So in the distant horizon there is a land called the Rain Kingdom. It is one of the only independent kingdoms with its own leader, and because it is far away from the royal capital it has a great contrast with the Kingdom of the Sun, since the weather here is always cloudy and cold, unlike the capital that, as the name says, Kingdom of the Sun, always has sunny days. In addition, the inhabitants of the Kingdom of Rain are born with supernatural power to cause rain through the use of his voice. This is a unique and incredible kingdom, and being a tyrant that everyone said he was, he decided that he would marry a princess of this kingdom. He then gives them a decree allowing them to continue as an autonomous kingdom, but this would only be possible if they offer one of their princesses to be his wife. Naturally, the 4 beautiful princesses of the Rain Kingdom are aware about the Sun King's rumors and are not so excited about becoming the king's bride, especially since they asked her as a political bargain. So the 4 sisters decide to play rock, paper and scissors to decide who would be sent to marry the Sun King. The youngest princess, named Nick, loses the game and is forced to leave for the Sun Kingdom, and during the trip she prepared herself, considering the king as a big heartless tyrant. The night the royal capital was busy, so things don't go so well. The girl ended up being robbed by 2 random thieves. Also, the locals despise her for belonging to a less prestigious kingdom. It wasn't a very pleasant situation for her at that moment, but a kind and wonderful family helped her that night by giving her even a little help from the locals. And wonderful family helps her that night, even giving her a shelter and warm food. They are genuinely welcoming, but things were not quiet as the oldest of the 2 sisters of this family ended up being kidnapped for no apparent reason. Nick obviously goes to resolve the situation as a way to repay the family for all their kindness, and being so, she uses her control over the weather to destroy the rude kidnappers and even forces them to show her the way to the palace. Finally, Nick is at the palace of the Sun Kingdom. She is very confident and prepared for the worst of the scenarios, but the moment she raises her head to show the king her appearance, the girl goes into shock, as a child sitting on the throne was not what she expected. In fact, no one would expect the king of the world to be just a little child. That's right folks, the king of the sun, named Livius, is just an 11-year-old boy, but Nick herself on the other hand was a 15-year-old girl. In other words, the two were still too young to be king and queen of the world. Anyway, after she pulls herself together, the 2 of them are still too young to be king and queen of the world. Anyway, after she got her act together, the king of the sun, Livius, arrogantly orders her to obey him just for his amusement, but Nick was a bold young girl, so she wouldn't just obey the king's command, especially considering he was just an arrogant child. She then gets annoyed that she is only being used for amusement, so she starts to stretch his cheeks. He then tells the girl that her powers were no better than his and orders her to bring rain to that kingdom, but the girl explains that she can't just bring rain to that kingdom. But the king of the sun, Livius, says that she can't just bring rain to the kingdom. Girl explains that she can't just summon rain from nowhere, and that would only be possible if she feels the inner beauty of the country and the people. She needed to be completely comfortable there. On the other hand, the king was not a very poetic guy, to say the least. He interprets Nick's words in their literal form and asks his maids to prepare many things for her, from a series of beautiful and elegant dresses to a lavish dinner. Nick in turn tells him that by the beauty of the world he was referring to the but as expected, it is very hard for the king to understand. It seems Livius was not able to see the inherent beauty of the world. It was still the beginning of their relationship. However, as she learned more about the boy, Nick began to feel instinctively closer to him, and so she vows to show the boy that the world was still a beautiful place. Over the next few hours, a ton of dramatic scenarios were about to get in the way of her and the king, with whom she was trying to convey the beauty of the world, when suddenly an arrow was shot at them. Its target was Livius. It was clearly a planned assassination attempt, but Nick reacts instinctively and gets between the arrow and Livius, saving him from being killed. Luckily, the arrow did not hit any of the vital organs. However, this sudden change of events makes Livius furious. Their safety was now no longer guaranteed, at least not at that moment, so he decides to send Nick away in a carriage protected by soldiers until things return to normal. But while she was on her way, she realizes the castle, especially Livius' room, was on fire. The attempt to kill Livius was much greater than before, and if something wasn't done quickly, Livius would be caught in the fire sooner or later. Nyx so gets out of the chariot and runs back to the castle. At that very moment she needed her powers with extreme necessity, and for that reason she summons rain to put out the fire. Livius was finally saved. He then opens his eyes to witness something he had never seen before in his life, a rainbow forming in the sky. The Sun King can't help but smile and cry at the same time, and after this he pulls Nyx by the clothes and kisses her. Later, in an unusual event in the castle where Nyx will be formally introduced as his future wife, many noble officials would come for the wedding party. In fact, some nobles from other kingdoms confront Nyx in a garden. It's that class-based elitism. They don't recognize her because her kingdom was inferior to the Sun Kingdom, but before she could say anything, Livius appears on the scene and actively insults those nobles for having humiliated her. After this, the king is resting in the garden using Nyx's lap as a pillow. It is a very cute and nice moment. Nyx then realizes that Livius is obviously quite tired. He may only be 11 years old, but the young man was quite diligent and hard-working when it came to diplomatic matters. She tells him not to overburden himself and that he should rest more, but the king somehow feels irritated by this, and then it ends in a sudden argument, giving Nyx perspective. Nyx, she was just trying to take care of her health, but as it ended in an argument, she is emotionally hurt and wonders if Livius really didn't care about her. Later, while she was in her room, Nyx remembers her mother singing a song. She also thanks her maids for always decorating her room with beautiful flowers, but they end up revealing to the girl that the one who chose those flowers was the king himself. Nyx is ashamed, and although she calls him an idiot, she also knows that this is proof that Livius really cared about her. The next day the wedding party had begun, and everyone was waiting anxiously for the identity of the princess to be revealed. By this time Livius was getting anxious since Nyx had not appeared on site, but his diligent butler named Neil asks the king to have a little faith in the girl he had chosen to be his bride. Suddenly a song echoes through the hall. When Nyx himself enters enveloped by rose petals, she then scatters roses all over the hall using her dexterity to get the princess to be his bride. The hall using her dexterity to control the wind. It's a beautiful sight. Nyx smiles and looks at Livius, and being so promptly shows her appreciation for all the guests that attended the event. She then starts getting everyone's attention, but once again summoning rain and then singing in her glory. All was now going well, but the ministry of the priesthood decided to meddle in the love between these two, since they now also have a job of evaluating who would marry into the royal family. Their opinion must be important, and being so they decide to the engagement for the same old superficial reason. They say that she comes from a not-so-prosperous kingdom and therefore has no right to marry the king of the sun. Of course, neither the king nor the queen back down. Both Nyx and Livius remain resolute to the fact that they will marry, and seeing this, the ministry suggests that Nyx prove herself a woman worthy of becoming queen by taking on a ritualistic challenge called the Rite of Enlightenment. The idea was that she would enter an ancient cave and then arrive at a temple, and in this temple she would find a ring that will be a gift that will be given to her as a gift of enlightenment. There is a reason why none of them made it back from the temple alive. For the king, that game was rigged so that no one would be able to complete the challenge. Nyx in turn enters the cave and is on her way to find that ancient ring, but it doesn't take long for her to be quickly surrounded and cornered by the princesses. Surrounded and cornered by the members of the ministry, and it is here that they reveal the important secret about the Rite of Enlightenment. For this was not a challenge for the princess to prove herself worthy to marry the king. This was simply a tool that the ministry used to expunge the princesses they considered unworthy to be the king's bride. For several centuries they continued to kill princesses this way. Unfortunately, this ministry thought themselves above the law in that country. Livius was also there. Nyx manages to escape through a secret tunnel that only the king knew about. They then spend the night looking at the stars, and in a short time their engagement ceremony takes place, although they have not recovered any kind of ancient ring in that cave. The party was at its peak, but there was no ring. It was then that Nyx had the idea to add some genuine color to the ceremony, and in turn she uses her skill to summon a white rainbow. White rainbow that circled around the sun in the form of a perfect ring, and Livius being considered as the king of the sun. All this became a magical and truly beautiful spectacle, both literally and metaphorically, but someone tries to ruin the moment by accusing the king of going against the law, as the king should not enter that cave. However, in trying to reveal the king's crime, the man foolishly also reveals the true plan of the ministry. So it was about time that the assassins were executed for their crimes, but Nyx says that it would be better to forgive them. The leader of the assassins sheds tears for Nick's kindness and also declares that Livius has become a better king because of her. Finally, the ceremony ends with Nick and Livius formally recognized as a married couple. Now the Rain Kingdom and the Sun Kingdom were connected and would not be separated for eons. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews of the best anime. A kiss from your captain, and until next time.